Our top story tonight, at least 300 people have been killed and there's widespread devastation in Japan after a massive earthquake that triggered giant tsunami waves in coastal parts of the country. Capital Tokyo came to a standstill as fires raged across the city. People across the world watched in horror the images coming in from Japan. For those in India, it brought back memories of the tsunami here.
An 8.9 earthquake that triggered off tsunami waves over 13 feet high.
One of the largest to ever hit Japan.
The tsunami devastated large areas of northeastern Japan. Fields, homes, airports, everything. Anything that came in its way simply swept away. The world watched as the massive waves overwhelmed. Cars, homes, simply floating away in a coastal surge. Sendai perhaps the worst hit. The quake struck about 400 kilometers from the capital Tokyo that bore the brunt of the quake. It hit at 2:46 local time. The impact led to huge fires in and outside Tokyo. Clouds of fire and smoke that touched the sky and refused to die. Oil refineries and other factories also caught fire. Tokyo and many other cities hurled back in time. Without power, transportation, 4 million homes had no electricity. Subway stations were shut down. Bullet trains stopped. Thousands came on the streets. Everyone desperately tried to get in touch with their families. As military planes took off to survey the damage and rescue officials worked overtime to help, came these pictures, striking fear into the hearts of millions. A second round of massive walls of water in the ocean, making their way towards land, adding horror to an existing nightmare. As governments urged people to go to higher ground, residents took refuge on rooftops, some desperately asking for help. The Japanese Prime Minister came on national television to calm his countrymen. He also said that all nuclear plants were safe, shut down, and there were no radiation leaks. But as the day progressed, news of a fire in the turbine building of Onagawa nuclear plant. 20 countries and many Pacific islands were put on a tsunami alert. Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii, Indonesia braced for the attack. But hours later, when the waves hit the Taiwan coast, the tsunami had weakened significantly. A relief for several countries who were prepared for the worst after today's quake, the strongest in 7 years. NDTV Bureau Report.
A state of emergency has been declared at one of the country's nuclear power plants. People within 2 kilometers of Fukushima nuclear plant have been told to evacuate as a precaution against radioactive leakage from the reactor. But the Japanese Prime Minister came on TV to say that so far there have been no radiation leaks. A fire at a second nuclear plant, Onagawa, has been extinguished. Well, we spoke earlier to Catherine Kobayashi, a reporter with the Japanese broadcaster NHK. I asked her, in fact, about the nuclear power plants, that state of emergency being declared, and what this would mean for people around the plant.
Well, currently, the prefectural police here in Japan say that 74 people have been confirmed dead so far. Of course, the number is expected to rise. Now, I'm just tuning into your broadcast here now, so I don't know what you've been reporting so far, but we're seeing pictures. I'm located in Tokyo currently, but we're seeing pictures coming out of Miyagi Prefecture. I believe you're seeing the same pictures that I'm seeing. Sendai is the area that was devastated by the tsunami. It was just horrifying to see homes and cars swept away so quickly. The country is prepared for natural disasters. As you may already know, Japan has a rigorous earthquake building code and excellent tsunami warning systems here. So it was just a surprise to see so much devastation in such a short time. Well, currently helicopters are trying to pick up people who have sought refuge on rooftops. Many people are used to dealing with earthquakes here in Japan. Children are trained in elementary schools. They know what to do when an earthquake hits. So it seems that most people who were able to react were quick to go seek refuge. So far, we have been hearing that nuclear power plants are shut down. We did see pictures of an oil refinery up in the northeast on fire, but rescue workers are trying to contain the blaze there. As for the nuclear power plants, all we have heard is that they've been shut down, but there's no radioactive leakage at this time.
And walking the streets, I was able to find out that there's been a lot of object that has fallen. There hasn't been any objects that have fallen, or that the windows have shattered. But there was quite a crowd. People's shoulders would hit each other when people are walking, and it's difficult to go ahead of others in this crowded situation. And when people are walking, what they do is that they're trying to obtain information via their cell phone. However, their mobile phones are having a hard time to connect, and on the public phones, pay phones, there's been a long queue. And I stopped by at a convenience store, and around 7 p.m., people were purchasing food. And they would eat the food on site, and they would aim to walk to the next station. That was the situation. And there was a bus stop, and the buses were operating. However, they were caught in the traffic jam, so they could not move much. And at that time, the metro services were suspended. And there were announcements that people had to vacate the metro stations as well. And standing here at Shinjuku Station is getting colder and colder. People are saying they're concerned that they won't be able to go home, and they're concerned whether they would be able to find accommodations around here. And in order to accommodate people who are having a hard time going home, the Chief Cabinet Secretary, Gyo Edano, has instructed all ministries to provide accommodations using public facilities.
Well, what's perhaps really worrying is that most buildings in Japan are earthquake-proof already. This is because it falls in a zone of very high seismic activity. But really, none of all that planning or preparation seems to have helped.
And scientifically, Japan falls in the Pacific Ring of Fire, and the tectonic plates in this region are said to be very active. NDTV's Pallav Bagla explains what happened and the massive aftermath.
It was mid-afternoon, and Japan was suddenly jolted by a massive 8.9 magnitude earthquake. Japan is highly earthquake-prone, and a sudden cracking of earth almost 5 kilometers below the sea unleashed a massive tsunami. A giant wall of water generated in the aftermath of the earthquake, traveling at several hundred kilometers an hour, hits Japan within minutes. On the west, the wave traveling for hours hits regions as far as Hawaii, Australia, and Central America. India has remained unaffected, shielded simply because India is not in the direct line of sight of the earthquake. The countries falling in between taking the brunt. But the threat for India is not over just yet. The wave is traveling across the globe, and past Australia. It is likely to cause a tsunami in India several hours later. But Indian experts monitoring the situation say, even if it strikes, it may not be more than 30 centimeters in height. In New Delhi, Pallav Bagla for NDTV.